I've read so much about online grooming, cyberbullying, inappropriate and harmful content, and also sharing inappropriate images. And for the sake of our conversation, I'd like to take the issues in two categories, if you will. One where external factors are dominant, and the other internal factors are more prevalent, such as sharing inappropriate images and content. Let's look at the latter first. Back in the spring, we launched a campaign called Wait a While with a survey that touched upon some of the issues that teenage girls are facing or which are specific to the internet. And one of them was sexting, sharing the images. We surveyed 1,266 girls, 14-year-old girls, and 16% said they had shared pictures of themselves. And our research, as well as that of others, turned up that most teens don't really understand that this is criminal. And I'd like to you to talk to us about what can be done to educate teens about the criminality and also the mental damage that this sort of thing causes.
Sadly, it can cause quite extreme psychological and emotional damage to young people, especially if their image has been shared widely, especially if they don't know where that image has ended up. So it's really less about the criminality and more about the kind of mental health and mental well-being of especially young girls, because sadly, from my experience, most of the time where this has happened, it has been the girl that has been the victim, and there's
Mm.
still quite a gender imbalance around some of these issues. Notwithstanding that this absolutely does happen to boys as well, and boys have also been put in very vulnerable positions. But the psychological and emotional well-being for young people and especially young girls in this context is really, really crucial. Um,
Mm.
it is illegal to share a sexually explicit image, even if you are in a relationship with somebody, and even if you're 16 and you can legally have sex. If you are under 18 and you share this kind of imagery, you are breaking the law. Lots of young people are very frustrated by that, especially 17-year-olds who may have been in a relationship with somebody for a number of years. There have been young people who have been criminalised and subjected to the criminal justice system for sharing these kind of images. The police are taking a more pragmatic view around some of these issues. So something was introduced back in 2016 called Outcome 21. So if somebody is involved in this kind of exchanging of imagery or this dissemination of imagery or the generation of this kind of imagery, then they might not feel the full force of the law if it was a
Mm.
consenting relationship. However, if it was coercive in any way, so if somebody was forced to either take a picture or coerced into sharing the imagery, then in that kind of scenario, then young people would feel the full force of the law. And, this is really because the law is lagging behind the kind of digital world in many aspects of life, but certainly in this aspect of life.
Wow. This is really heavy stuff. And I do think a big part of it is educational. And I agree with you 100% that the mental and emotional ramifications for this are just amazingly important for people to get their head around.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's so important to educate our young people about the illegal aspect of it as well, because it can also have implications for them, not only in the now, but for their future. So, what can teenage girls do to ensure that they are using appropriate content, content that will not come back to haunt them in the future?
I think your point about education, it's crucial. We don't want young people to end up in a situation where they're not able to get jobs or they're not able to be a teacher or a policewoman if they've engaged in this kind of behaviour. And that's partly why the police are taking a much more pragmatic view around the sharing of this kind of imagery, it's important to give young girls the facts about this kind of behaviour. Let's get real about this stuff. The crucial age, and what we know is that most young people start to share this imagery around the age of 14. So we need to make sure that that education piece starts way before then, so that we start
Mm.
to talk to them about what's appropriate to share, what's not appropriate to share, about how that might impact you in the future, and that we give them real life scenarios. So many teenagers feel patronized by some of the educational programs that exist. We need to get real, and we need to give them the facts, and we need to talk to them in a language that they understand. I think it's really important to be positive online, to project yourself in a way that you feel good about, and to actually be mindful of the content that you're looking at, and to think about whether it's appropriate to share something, or whether it's appropriate to even look at something.
Mm.
Do you feel comfortable with that if somebody was saying that about you, or sharing that about you? So it goes back to that old adage of, don't do unto people that you wouldn't like someone to do to you. And it all has consequences. It might be online, but it hurts people, it affects people, and it
Mm.
has permanency around it, which is different to the offline context in the physical world.
Yeah, it's a very, very different world. And I really, really take your point about starting to educate young people earlier. That's a really toughie, which is
Yes.
another podcast, another story. But I do think it's really key.